Hello, my name is Ed Brown, Managing Director at the American Academy of Advanced Thinking and your host for Insights in Education. Today, I will be speaking with Peter Winick of Thought Leadership Leverage in our talk titled Leveraging Thought Leadership in Education for Upward Mobility. Peter Winick has over 20 years of experience and has worked with a variety of thought leaders. He expertly leverages that along with his experience with such clients as IBM, Kraft, Microsoft, Avon, Hyatt, and more. In addition, he has built and managed several consulting and professional development organizations. Peter is an information junkie and an avid reader of business books. He believes that taking great content and creating a platform to best support it takes a combination of art, science, logic, focus, passion, and creativity. Welcome, Peter, to Insights in Education.
Thanks for having me.
Peter, from your vantage point, a lot of times thought leadership is bandied about quite often these days. How do you define thought leadership?
That's a question I get asked quite frequently and enjoy. So thought leadership, there's a buzzword element to that today, which is not good. So I think it's important that when you're talking about something, everybody knows what you're talking about, right? So if we're talking about an apple, we're not talking about a piece of citrus. So to me, there's two components to thought leadership. The first piece is thought, right? So is it something thoughtful? Is it something intelligent? Is it something that's not just an expression, a saying, or whatever? And then the second piece is leadership. So if you were to look at thought leadership together and say sort of what is it's not, and it would be thoughtless followership, which is what I see a lot of out there today. So the leadership piece to me is really important, that what you're doing is you're contributing to the dialogue, contributing to the conversation, and contributing to the evolution of whatever the area of expertise is that you're practicing, to move it to a better place, to add to it, to enhance what's already out there in the world.
Okay. And what would you say inspired your journey towards thought leadership? How did you actually get into this space?
Well, we're on the business side of thought leadership, so I don't know that I would, I or anyone else would actually call me a thought leader, but you're welcome to. I don't know if I meet the criteria. To me, it's an interesting space from the business perspective, which is where we come at it from, because it used to be a pretty easy, or I shouldn't say easy, but a pretty simple business. It would be some sort of combination of writing, speaking, and maybe doing some presentations and workshops and things of that nature. And then as a result of changes that have happened in the marketplace, technology, the web, et cetera, that those business models have been upended, the traditional publishing business model, the speaking model, et cetera. And there are lots and lots of ways to put content out in the world. So that's really the lens that we look at it through, is the business angle on thought leadership.
And was there an impetus, or you were doing something else and you steered in this direction? Was there a compelling backstory that you said, this is where I wanted to build my repertoire of information or body work upon?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think it was somewhat serendipitous and opportunistic. So I always thought there were two different sides to things that I enjoyed. So there was, Peter, the business person, the entrepreneur, et cetera. And then there was Peter, the content junkie, right, where, loved to read books, magazines, TED Talks, articles, whatever. And then those two worlds really collided for me about 15 years ago or so, when I was recruited to do a turnaround for a company that did communication skills, presentation skills. And I was like, oh, wait, everything I know on the business side I get, because this is a business, so I understand how to make things better and serve your clients and run a profitable business, et cetera. But there's this whole business of content where all the stuff that I've been using and enjoying for years and years just to sort of better myself, or, I'm a lifelong learner, curious by nature, et cetera. Like, there's sort of a business side to this. So those two things sort of came together serendipitously, and I saw an opportunity in the marketplace to build a company that serves thought leaders that are struggling with sort of some of the business challenges in the space.
And I like what you said about marketplace. What did you see in the marketplace that you thought leadership was in step with?
Well, what I saw in the marketplace is a market that was in turmoil and a lot of change, right? So it's the old model, like I said, of speaking and writing books was not one that was any longer sustainable. And in order to be successful commercially, financially, as a thought leader, you need to change, right? And you need to understand so many other elements today in terms of branding, in terms of productizations, in terms of social media, et cetera. And I didn't really see anybody serving the holistic needs of a thought leader. It was a very fragmented market, right? So you had a book agent helping people get book deals, and you had publishers publishing books, and you've got speaking agents getting you speaking gig sort of in an ad hoc fashion, and you might have a PR firm when you launched your book, but nobody was taking a step back and looking at it holistically, saying, okay, what do you want to do? How do you want to develop your content? How do you want to deploy it? How do you want to monetize it? What do you want to do with this? And how do you get that advice and that counsel and the services that sort of go with it in one place that's connected, not through a provider that's only looking at one very small piece of your world, like a book agent as an example.
Okay, and that's interesting because I think this idea of content marketing has become a huge conceptual reality in the last couple of years. Would you say thought leadership and content marketing are different, or are they one and the same, or how do they differ, if they in fact are different?
I think there's some overlap. The content marketing is much more specific, right? So content marketing, by its very definition, is basically saying, listen, the traditional world, the Mad Men world of advertising and marketing isn't as effective as it used to be. And think about that. Back in the day, 30, 40 years ago, you had 3 to 5 choices on television. There wasn't an internet, and you had your AM and FM radio in your car. So to reach people was pretty easy. I just had to stand up and scream loudly and spend a lot of money, and I'd be able to reach you. That doesn't work today, and I think content marketing is really more of a response to ways to market to people through content. Thought leadership, there are elements of thought leadership that play nicely in the content marketing world, but thought leadership in and of itself is a bit different. You're selling. You're not using the content to market something else per se, although you can. You're actually selling your ideas, your thoughts, your models, your processes, etc.
Okay. So if the thought leadership is a destination point, whereas content marketing is kind of like a medium or conduit towards that destination point?
No, I don't know if I would call it a destination point. I mean, thought leadership, for example, I'll give you some examples. So content marketing might mean, let me give a new mom a bunch of content on baby challenges, whatever, breastfeeding, diapers, nutrition for babies, etc., and I'm Gerber Foods. So I'm going to give you all this information because I know something about you. I know you just had a baby, and people that just have babies tend to buy the following products, right? Baby food and diapers and all that other kind of stuff. So let me give you a whole bunch of content that's informative and beneficial to you, and hopefully you will relate back to me some of the halo or the benefit to say, wow, I really appreciate you, Procter & Gamble, for giving me all those tips. I'm going to feel an affinity to buy from you. And that's fine. That's great.
Right.
Thought leadership is different. It's basically saying, I am an expert in X. Maybe that's agility. Maybe that's resilience. Maybe that's innovation, sales, marketing, leadership, or whatever. And I'm going to sell that expertise to individuals, to teams, to organizations that could benefit from mastering my processes, models, and intellectual property.
Okay. Close, but definitely a demarcation between the two concepts.
Yep, a little bit.
Okay. And with that being said, I know you're in the field of business thought leadership. What guidelines, if any, would you provide educators for becoming thought leaders?
Yeah, so I've done a little bit in education, so I'll answer that sort of generally. So if you're an educator, I would say sort of what is the advantage to you as an educator of being a thought leader, right? So in the traditional world of academia, post-secondary education, et cetera, it's the publish or perish model.
Right.
So the frustration that I've seen, and we've got a lot of clients that are academics, quite frankly, is when you're in that in that world of, you have to publish for lots and lots of reasons. However, that what you're publishing, nobody's going to read. That's pretty frustrating, right? Because they're putting a lot of work, energy, effort, etc., into producing something that it doesn't get well received, and that's just the nature of academia, right? Academic journals are what they are, and it's sort of this guild model requirement for academics. So I would say, for educators that are sort of in that path, what are the derivatives that you can take from the investments that you've made in developing content that meets that academic journal standard that can be used more broadly? Because academics speak in a certain way and talk in a certain way, and I can only speak for myself, but when I read academic journals, they work better on me than NyQuil typically. And how do you take that content and say, you know what, I want to take this content and make it engaging, exciting, interesting to this type of population, business leader, salesperson, marketer, whatever, and communicate in straightforward English with straightforward language and outcomes and objectives that are beneficial to me, a time-starved business person.
And I'm thinking, as you say that, an educator is saying, well, I love teaching, I love edifying students, so on and so forth, but don't know where to start in terms of a topic matter. If there was a process or a concept that you could tell educators to find a topic that they can actually own or dominate for that matter, what would you suggest to them?
Oh, yeah. So this is where I think educators actually do a terrible job, because they tend to do this in isolation. So educators, and I'll make a general statement, which I know is not universally true, but are a little bit more introspective. They're a little bit more thoughtful, right? And they tend to come up with things in isolation. And what I would say is, I don't really care what you think. What does the market want? What is out there in the marketplace, a problem through the lens of education that you are uniquely qualified to solve? You have something to say, you can add to the dialogue, etc. Start with an unmet need in the marketplace and work backwards versus what you think in your office somewhere in academia land.
I love it. And one of the questions I'm always asked is, how do you know when you have achieved thought leadership status? How do I know when I arrive? I guess they want to more or less add water and stir. If you were talking to educators, how would they know when they've actually reached thought leader status?
Yeah, there's no secret handshake. There's no club. I would say, as a general rule, if the only one calling you a thought leader is you haven't done it.
Okay.
So it's and I'm being somewhat snarky there, but it's when others in your field or in the space that you're practicing that you respect are taking on your ideas and acknowledging and recognizing you for the contributions that you're making. Sometimes that could be, annotations and things that are typical in academia. Sometimes it's others taking on or using some of your work in their work. That's flattery, right? So I think it's really the recognition of others that you admire and respect.
You would think that in the field of education, this would be a no-brainer. Of course, we want to be thought leaders. Of course, intellectualism is important. Of course, we want to, again, as earlier, edify students as well as the world. But oftentimes, again, as you say, they operate in maybe silos or bubbles. If you would say what holds, this might be a general question, what holds people back from building a thought leadership strategy? Is there one or two things that you have found, discovered, that precludes people from actually doing the thought leadership thing, if you will, or to actually build a thought leadership model or platform?
Yeah, so, it's a great question. I think what happens for most, not all, but a vast majority, is it's one of these, how did I get here, right? It wasn't like they had a plan. So in many other endeavors in our life, be they personal or professional, there's a plan. So if I were to say, I'm going to run a marathon, and I haven't jogged a mile in 10 years, I'm probably not going to sign up for one tomorrow. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to do some training. I might hire a coach. I might work on my nutrition, work on my fitness, and say, you know what? Well, maybe that marathon's too big of a deal. Let me try a half marathon, right? If I were to open a pizza shop in my local community, there's some standard things I would do. I would look at the competition. I would look at the flow of traffic. I'd figure out what my market should be. Should I be on the high end of the market, the low end of the market? What are my cost of goods, et cetera? But what's sort of weird or interesting about thought leadership, a lot of people just sort of wake up one day and say, here I am, right? And they've gotten there without a plan. So there's nothing wrong with getting there without a plan. I think it's incredibly inefficient, and there are more, the shortest point between two dots is a straight line. Most people it looks like spaghetti. So I would think if you actually are at a place where you want to, or you are but want to make sure you're taking it to the next level, use your business logic, right? So what is your strategy? What's your plan? A lot of people say, I don't have a plan. Well, okay, that's not a good idea. What's the strategy? What are the markets you're going to serve? Who are your competitors? What can you do to be different? I mean, there's some just basic block and tackle things and questions and thinking that you borrow from business and apply it in any other domain. In this case, an educator striving to be a thought leader, and lo and behold, it decreases pain and suffering.
It's interesting you say that, because I'm thinking from a market analysis perspective. Oftentimes you hear thought leadership bandied about again in corporate and business parlance. What do you see is the future of thought leadership as a conceptual framework inside either the marketplace or academia or what have you? Do you see, are there telltale signs along the way saying where thought leadership is actually going?
Well, I think there's a couple things. Here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is, I think at the macro or global level, it's more inclusive and democratized now, and the barriers to entry are lower. So you could have someone that's really smart and thoughtful and just killing it, that's not living in some sort of intellectual hub. They're not living in Cambridge or Berkeley or whatever. They're in Nigeria, or they're in Belgium or wherever. And because they have access to the same tools that you and I do, they can get their stuff out there. That's pretty cool, right? That there is, we're not totally at a place where the old boys network is dead or any of that kind of stuff, but it's easier for everybody's voice to be heard.
Right.
The flip side of that, or the bad, is there is way more noise out there than ever before. And it used to be that we lived in a world that information was scarce, right? So not that many hundreds of years ago when I was a kid, you had the World Book Encyclopedia. I don't know if any, raise your hand if you're over 40, you remember those.
Right.
And you would go and you would pick up something, the V, and look up something under V, V-Day or something like that, and there would be a synopsis and whatever, and that article may have been written 15 years ago. Now, I mean, it's amazing what's out there and the timeliness and all that. That being said, I go put a Google search in for something today, and there's millions of responses that come out. So it's this combination of way more than ever stuff coming at me, and I need a filter to separate the good from the bad. So, what are those filters? Those filters are places that you admire and respect. So for me, that might be NPR or TED or whatever, where I'm going to look at that because I trust that things that get to those channels have been vetted, or things that are sort of the intellectual standard that I would expect, et cetera.
And again, I used to ask Keith, because you said NPR or TED, and it has been vetted by individuals in that space. Because there is not a barrier to entry in terms of information or thought leaders, what have you, I'll actually putting you on line with this. What do you think will be the determining factor for those who actually become thought leaders or influencers inside their niche, as opposed to those who do not? Is there if everyone can actually enter, who will actually be the ones that we listen to, since there is a lot of noise, in terms of your analysis?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways that can go. So the least desirable way that can go, in my opinion, is your dopey cousin Melvin on Facebook that's posting lots and lots of stuff, and you're taking that information at the same level that you would take it from a credible source versus just someone opinionated with a microphone that doesn't really have anything, any reason to, just spew forth whatever, uneducated, ill-informed, not factual-based information. So that's number one. You can get it from your crazy Uncle Melvin on Facebook. Number two is, I think it's like any other business, any other industry, the cream will rise to the top. The market will recognize good quality content and get it up there, and it will be acknowledged. And I think the reality is we live in the world where if you were to recommend that I read something, I would take that at a higher level than a random tweet that I read from someone who's I don't even know.
Okay. And with that being said, what are you working on these days?
Oh, we're working on lots of things. These days we are helping our various clients build their brands, build the products to support those brands, get that content out there, grow their businesses. There's lots going on in the innovation space. There's lots going on in the culture space. There's lots going on in the team development space. There's never a shortage of great ideas that are getting better and better every day. So I think that fares well for us.
I think you're doing a great job of marketing thought leadership, because I know when I was looking at the niche of education, I wanted to find out who was doing other things that I can actually bring into education to talk about what they were doing. And your videos, Thought Leadership Leverage, to me and I'll say it currently, is one of the best background information I've found, because I think that I choose people based on their body of work in terms of what they have put together, intellectual property, and your name kept coming up, and I kept watching. I'm an avid advocate of what you do, as well as a fan, if you will. So I think that what you're doing is great. So when you say you're not a thought leader, I have to defer and say, no, you are, because I found you, and that's why I reached out to you for this particular information. A little kudos to you, but if people, and again, I found you on YouTube, what is the best way for people to contact you if they want more information and or to do business with you?
Sure. So there's the website, which is thoughtleadershipleverage.com. Lots of good information, blogs, videos, a variety of content there. And the best way to get to me directly is, shockingly, via email, peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts for the good of the order?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Any final thoughts for the good of the order?
Yeah, I think what I would say is if you're serious about being a thought leader, then be serious about being a thought leader, right? Put the energy in, put the effort in, develop a strategy, do the work. It's not easy. There's no 3 steps to success. If I had them, I'd give them to you. It's not that easy. But put in the work, have a plan, develop a strategy, stick to it, test things, watch the data, see what works, see what doesn't work. Don't get too connected to an idea that you have in terms of what might work and what won't. The market will tell you. Get to market quickly and listen to what it will tell you.
Words to live by. Thank you, Peter, for being a guest on Insights in Education.